there are a few instructions. There are 2-3 things that I would also like to say, that why we are here and how I want you to engage in this session. Well, I want you to understand that when I ask you questions during the session, I don't want you to give me answers that are expected of you. I want you to give me answers which come to your mind, which you think are correct. Okay, don't try to please me, but try to give me answers that cross your mind. Second, your language may be broken. You may sometimes you think in Hindi and you write in English and things like that. So it's perfectly okay if your language is slightly little, not up to the mark. It's perfectly okay. What I want you to do is engage with me for these 90 minutes that we are together. So why are we engaging on a platform like this? Principally because I believe these are 21st century skills that we as students, as teachers need to understand. If we are not aware of it, it's good to, let it be an eye opener, because I think it's a challenge for teachers also that, they're teaching content, they're teaching you curriculum of which they're not sure if they're going to end up, getting you jobs in the next 5 years. So I think it's a big challenge for teachers, for trainers, for mentors as well. But what's important for students is to understand that these are the 3 skill sets, which I like to use mnemonics because it's easier for us to remember. So the first skill set that I think you should have as a student in a changing or an evolving job market is learning skills. I hope you can see it showed 4 C's, but I've added a 5th C because in the lockdown, it has taught us that without compassion, having critical thinking skills, being creative, collaborating, communication is not going to help if you're not going to be compassionate for a team member, for a fellow student, for a teammate. So I've added the 5th C under the learning skills, which will now read as 5 C's. Okay. Next comes is the literacy skills, under which I put IMT, which is information, media, and technology. And the last one is life skills or flips. And I think that's somewhere that you will see that I'm a major in skin cancer. I have been a tutor for STEM teachers. I'm working with STEAM teachers. I'm working with STEP in STEM, which means the 8th, 9th, and 10th standard school teachers. I'm conducting lectures in Hindi. I'm conducting lectures in Marathi. So how somebody who's done a PhD in skin cancer is, versatile and, performing so well on different platforms. Okay. So life skills includes flexibility, leadership, initiative, productivity, and social. So I really want a feedback from you of what you thought about my slide deck, what you thought about my thought process, whether it's positive or negative. I appreciate both kind of feedback, for which I'm sure we're going to have a question answer session at the end of this. So the best kind of education does not prepare students for a test or for a college or for a job. It prepares them to keep learning. And somewhere, I think you have to understand that when I say it prepares you for life, it allows you to ask questions. It allows you to critically evaluate things. And it allows you to, constantly think, evolve your thinking. And this will come only when you have a systematic way of approaching things, which is why we're together here. Okay. And one of the primary goals in science education, because your teacher briefed me that you all are going to be, an audience which is coming from maths, which is also having chemistry majors and other subjects. So the principal goals of science education is, to help you to develop higher order thinking, which we, put it under, when we use a jargon or we use a big word, critical thinking, it somehow makes us look, much better as compared to just saying a higher order of thinking skills. Okay. So we call them LOTS or HOTS. So lower order or higher order of thinking skills. Okay. So the current and common way of teaching science leaves an impression of the nature of it, mainly because, what happens is the ability to question and imagine is not cultivated in our university system. Of course, there are different colleges, which have botany clubs, which have thinking clubs, they have different activities under which the child is motivated. But typically the way the curriculum is taught, because of our limitations, because of the way we conduct it in the, the core of the course, is that it does not cultivate this attitude of asking questions and imagining. So, by 4th standard, 5th standard, you are just expected to follow a model answer and reproduce that in your answer sheet. In fact, there are teachers I have seen, who are given a model answer, and if the student writes something in their own words, the teacher probably gives them 0 or doesn't give them the accorded marks. So I hope you understand that this is a technical flaw. It's a system error. And I'm not here to change that, but I'm definitely the change that I think I can make in the system by telling you that, this is the way going forward. So the focus on teaching and learning is associated with a tendency to concentrate less on thinking and more on reproducing. Okay, and this is when you are put on the shop floor, when you join a job, when you're joining academia, when you do research and development, you're formulating something, and suddenly you realize, that, oh my God, this was not the way what we were taught in college. So where do we go from here? Okay, so what is this critical thinking? Since I've mentioned the word as a speaker, it's my duty to tell you what is critical thinking or higher order thinking. Well, just don't worry. It's just a set of mental processes that we go through in evaluating the merit of something. What is the merit? The truth of a statement, the usefulness of a product or a process, the moral rightness or wrongness of an action or practice, the effectiveness and efficiency of a policy, the beauty of a work of art, and or the significance of an event. Right? So I can see about almost 100 of us are here. So you think it's simple, right? But let me make it as simple for you, and let's get going with an exercise. I hope all of you are ready, and I hope all of you are sitting there with a pen and paper so that you can write this down and get it done. So I put an exercise here, and the time limit for this is 3 minutes. I really wish we could have done it in an offline mode, but as soon as you finish, I want your yes in the chat window. So you have exactly 3 minutes, and your time starts now. Okay? So as soon as you're done with this exercise, I need to see your yes in the chat window, and I'm waiting for quick answers. So get going. I hope you can see it all on the screen.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Anybody who's done yet? So as soon as you're done, I want to, I want you to put it in the chat window. Okay, thank you, Ghazala. Thank you so much. I can see that. So I've kept my chat window on, and I can see your responses.
Students, please put in your responses.
As soon as you're done, quickly, so we can get ahead of. Thank you, Manjari. Thank you, Asta. That's really very sweet of you. Thank you. Are the others still doing it? If you're still doing it, you can just put a yes. So Chhavi, thank you. Thank you, Suha. Okay, so all those who are still doing it, can you just put your pens and pencils down, and let me take this ahead by telling you. So the first person who finished it, I think, was Ghazala. Ghazala, can you tell me how you finished so soon? Was there anything specific? Was there anything, some magic that you had that you could do it so quickly when I had said it's a 3-minute activity? Ghazala, you could put it down in the chat window in quickly so that I can draw from your inputs. Okay, while Ghazala is probably typing her answer or the others are... Okay, when you say start, yes, thank you. So, okay, so I think she's still putting her response. But let me take this in a nutshell for you. I hope you saw this activity and it clearly said that, if you read the first line, it said read all that follows before doing anything. I'm repeating this. Read all that follows before doing anything. And what happened? What most of us would do, yes, you would just start writing the answer. You would just start writing the answer. Thank you, Chhavi, for that exclamation. It really helps me when you're communicating in the chat because it gives us a feel of, how we would have transacted this. Thanks, Niyati, you read that. That's very nice. So I hope you know that a lot of these examination bodies, like, for example, CBSE, somebody whom I know, where they give you 15 minutes to read that paper. Yes. So if you just saw this, even following simple instructions is so difficult for us. The teacher tells us, and please students don't mind me saying that, but even when I do this for the teachers workshop, believe me, 90% of the teachers do the same thing. They just get going, they clap their hands, they say hello, they tap their neighbor, they say the name of their friends. So I really hope you enjoyed this activity because that was like an icebreaker. I wanted you to feel at home and I wanted you to feel comfortable early in the morning, attending this session of mine. So I hope you understood that critical thinking is not something that has to be done, with things doing in a different way, being very, very evaluative about something. It's about, beginning to just follow instructions. It's about beginning to understand what is expected of you. It is about knowing that, this is the way things are done. This is the way things are to be done. This is the way it is to be followed and more. Okay. So what is critical thinking indeed? Well, when a medical doctor recommends a surgery, how do you evaluate the advice? When we observe a class session by a teacher, how do we evaluate the quality of teaching? How do you evaluate the quality of a book? How do we decide whom to vote for, whether to propose to someone or accept a proposal, which brand of tea to buy, whether to believe what a teacher or textbook says? The answer to each one of this involves critical thinking. If you didn't know that, it's good to know. And I think all of us are critical thinkers, right? Your mother selects which tea bag to buy, which tea to buy, right? And if you change the tea, everybody at home says, chai mein kuch change hua hai kya? Chai patti thodi change hui hai kya? Yes, and that's where higher order thinking comes in. You don't have to be intelligent for it, but you have to have the ability to think and to question. Now, every student is required to conduct research in their academic careers at one point or another. A good research paper not only requires a great deal of time, but it also requires complex skills. Research skills include the ability to organize, evaluate, locate, and extract relevant information. And that is why I thought it would be appropriate for us to talk about how to read scientific literature today. Yes, what are the research skills that we're typically looking at in students? These include formulating questions, observing, planning, collecting data, recording data, organizing data, interpreting data, presenting research findings, and more. What are the different types of research skills? These can be categorized as the main skills, which means summarizing and categorizing, thinking critically, something that I've just spoken about, analytical thinking, again, I will be engaging you for a few exercises later, and of course, explanation skills. What are the additional skills that are needed? Well, the most important one, time management skills, finance management, and of course, information technology skills or IT skills that I put there in a nutshell. Okay, so quickly, here goes my second exercise. You need to attend a get-together, a party where there is a theme that says you need to dress up as a character. So within your limitations, within the present frame of things, how are you going to do this? So you need to attend a virtual party, and I need you to use the chat window and tell me that how are you going to carry out this action? What is going to be your thought process? Please remember, I'm asking you what is going to be your thought process. You need to attend a get-together or a party where there is a theme that says you need to dress up as a character. आप क्या करने वाले हो? What is going to be? आपकी सोच क्या होगी? How are you going to ensure that you look unique in the party? How are you going to ensure that you are at home? You're not going to be able to go out and get a dress for yourself or something like that. So how are you going to ensure that you look like a particular character? And I'm leaving the forum open again. And I'm just going to spend about 3 to 5 minutes on this. So quickly in the chat window, I need you to tell me what you are likely to do for an activity like this. And through this, we are going to derive something again. Quickly, whatever comes to your mind, not what answers I am expecting, what you are likely to do, what comes to your mind immediately. Or even what are you going to dress up as? So I'm giving you about a minute to think, and then of course the chat window is open for you to give me your answers. Anybody yet who's already given it a thought and how you're going to go about it? So you need to attend a virtual party. Imagine I'm throwing a virtual party with about 89, 95 of us here. And what is going to be your thought process before participating in this to become a character? What character are you going to become? I cover myself with a bed sheet and I look like okay of any cartoon program. Okay, that's great going. That's great going, Ghazala. Thank you very much for that answer. Anybody else? Please remember there's no penalty for a wrong answer because there are no wrong answers here. I just want to derive something. I will dress up like one of my favorite characters, Anshika. So who's your favorite character and how do you ensure that you look like that favorite character of yours? If you could throw some light on that. So I have 2 answers here and there are about 90 of us here. I'm sure there's something that crosses our mind. Okay, Payal says, think of what I can wear to look unique. Very good, Payal. Thank you so much for that leading answer. What we have, what can make me look good. Thank you. Asta says, thinking about what character should I choose. Thank you, Asta. Let me know quickly. We'll buy a dress online that will be similar to my character. Please note, Harshita is going to buy a dress online. Chandrika says, because I'm myself a unique character. Okay, Chandrika, I will take that answer. Priya says, I will check my wardrobe first of all, then decide what I should wear. Fantastic, Priya. That's very nice. I hope you can see the spectrum of answers here. Well, think about what clothes I own, and with that, I will decide what's the nearest character I can dress up with those. Thank you, Suha. The Invisible Man, Aryan, thank you. How are you going to look like the Invisible Man, Aryan? We are going to use home stuff. Thank you, Jessica. That's amazing. And our creativity to make something out of it. I can use colors to make something over my face. Maybe a character that's different from others and something awesome. Thank you, Asta. With those answers, I will take you forward. And well, while I'm taking you forward, you will understand what I actually meant when I asked you that question. All right? So, breaking it down, essentially, I'm trying to tell you to identify a relevant story that will fit the invitation, right? So that's your research topic. Well, you will ask friends and family. Many of you said, I'm going to take a bed sheet. Many of you said, I'm going to take things from my closet. Many of you said, I'm going to paint my face or probably paint my mask so that I look like that character. So that's going to be your literature review, right? Which character works well for you? I hope you could see in many of those answers that I'd like to look unique. I'd like to look different. I mean, nobody would want to go in a virtual party where I look like Mickey Mouse and somebody else also looks like Mickey Mouse, right? So you're going to identify your research problem or your research question from that. And essentially, you're going to put up your research proposal, what method you're going to use, and what resources. Did you see what resources we used here? Somebody said they're going to buy a dress online. Someone else said they're going to use their home stuff. Someone else said, I'm going to, pick up dresses and some makeup stuff or some colors from my kit and, color myself and put it up. So that's going to be your resources. Are those resources available in your lab? Do you need to have some high-end resources or can you make do with resources in your lab? Finally, you're going to validate. Did you get the costume right? Was Mickey Mouse looking like Mickey Mouse? Was an invisible man looking like an invisible man? And so on. You look at reliability, you look at the limitations, and that is how you'll put up a research report. So I really hope there were some take-homes from this exercise that I asked you to dress like a cartoon character and I helped you to identify what it is, to be able to put up a research project and how, in a nutshell, I'm sure this is just not enough, but I hope it got you thinking that this is how people work to make a very unique, a very application-oriented, a very relevant project. Okay, so taking the presentation further from here, So what's the research process? You initiate, yes. How do I look at how this is done? Then I look at, I select it, I organize it, I present it, and that gets assessed, right? Now, this could be in a conference, this could be a research paper, this could be an assignment, this could be a presentation. Okay. Now, in this research process, if you saw, there is where you're choosing your topic, you are, writing down your content, you're putting together your proposal, your literature review, you're writing down the proposal, and finally you're getting it done and publishing it. Like I said, either as an assignment or as a research paper, but somewhere there is an organized scientific reading and writing. Okay. So what is this organized reading that I'm talking about? Well, you're looking at research questions and key concepts. Is it relevant to the scope of your topic? How the research framework or approach, or what are the innovative ideas that work within this frame? What are the key findings, results, and conclusions of the study? Does it confirm, add to, or challenge the established knowledge? Does it offer significant insights? What are the strengths and weaknesses of this research? Okay. Okay. So moving ahead from here, I hope you can see my screen. So what is this research that I am talking about? Okay. Why conduct research? To acquire knowledge, to evaluate new knowledge, to think independently, to think critically, to prepare for an independent assessment in further and higher education, and essentially to develop analytical skills for the world of work. Okay. So what is research? Is it to copy down facts from books and websites and put them together? No. Research is a learning and sharing process. Okay. Does the finding matter? Well, let me tell you what essentially confuses a lot of mentors, a lot of teachers, and essentially the students, right? Research is something that no one knows and can be published in a journal. What is a project? Which neither the teacher nor the student knows, and you submit it as a project report. What is a practical? When the teacher knows the outcomes, she's made the unknown, she knows what is an expected result here, but the student doesn't know this. So please remember and try to understand that this is how we delineate what is research from a project, what is a project output as compared to practicals that we carry out, and understand this delineation process. Why it becomes essential to have organized reading. Critically reading a research paper is a systematic process used to identify the strengths and weaknesses of a research article in order to assess the usefulness and validity of the research findings. I hope you can see how from a confused mesh, it is going to an organized structure in the person's brain there, okay? And what is a research article before we actually start to read it? It's the ultimate product of intellectual pursuit. It's a report on the research findings that are sound. It's previously unknown, novel, and original content, and obviously it builds new understanding, observation, and proofs. So let's start with the background of what is information versus what is knowledge. Well, we are all surrounded by meaningful content. This meaningful content could be about science and technology, it could be about vaccines, it could be about medical protocols, it could be about performing arts, right? Then your next question is going to be, what's knowledge? Well, knowledge is when somebody critically distills out specific points from this meaningful content and gives it out to you. So students, where do you get your knowledge from? Well, you get your knowledge from your teachers. They are subject experts. They have domain knowledge. You get knowledge from when you go to college, when you're doing practicals, when you're reading up references. And you get knowledge from research articles because they are written by mentors who have carried out those experiments and who have put together that content. So the subtle difference between all the information that you are flooded with and knowledge is something that I want you to draw from this point. So where do you get your information from? Obviously from social media handles, from public databases. And right now a condition is like that of the child on the phone, waiting for, colleges to reopen, protocols to be followed, and for us to do our practicals, meet our teachers, interact with our, colleagues, interact with our fellow students, build camaraderie and more. Now, I'm sure you've observed in the last 22 months that it's unlikely that you're able to share any COVID-related information on any social media site. The reason being, the general administration has banned any content like this to be put out in the public domain. Why? Well, because rumors could be misleading, they could cause panic. So they want you to go to validated sites. And what are these validated sites called? These are well curated sites, those of WHO, CDC, ICMR, India Bioscience, and more. Okay, so do remember this as we go forward. So I want you to take home and understand this, that information is not knowledge, but experience is knowledge. And all the rest falls in the domain of being called as information. So you know what happens when you give assignments to children, to students? They first go to desks, Google and Viki. You know, so I call them Google Bhaiya and Viki Didi. So what happens when you look for content in Google or in Viki? Well, the missing component there is curation. What is curation? Curation essentially means selection of accurate content. Let me give you an example. So I want to buy a mobile phone. And you know what I do? So I go to Google and I say, Google, please help me buy a mobile phone. And Google gives me two types of sites. One are blog sites. And on these blog sites, I get a lot of content or information about the different features of the phone, the different models of the phone, the different cost price of the phone, and something that will help me make a choice. But that's it. It also gives me several vendor sites. And when I go to these vendor sites, it offers me different filters. And you know what these filters are? These filters ask me very specific questions. What are the specific questions? What is the price of the phone that I want to purchase? What is the feature that I'm looking for? What is the camera resolution that I'm looking for? What is the storage capacity I'm looking for? And so on. And when I'm able to define this, it helps me make the choice of a phone which fits in my budget and has the requisite features. Okay, so that, my dear friends, is called curation. Well, I'm sure all of you have observed that whenever you buy something online, your inbox is flooded with more content or information regarding a particular product or a service that you have purchased. That means somebody backend, either a human or a machine, is selecting the appropriate content and giving it to you. So, what do you think? Let's define curation. The selection, organization, and presentation of online content, merchandise, information, typically using professional or expert knowledge, is called as curation. Well, data curation. Why am I telling you as a researcher, as an academician about data curation? Well, this is to tell you that many of you will make your, forte in academia, in research and development, in marketing and allied fields. But many of you will go into a domain of science called as data science, where you will end up doing data wrangling, data mining, data curation, and more. So I think this is, a valid platform for me to tell you that this is an opportunity for you to consider as a career option. Well, data curation is the active and ongoing management of data through its life cycle of interest and usefulness to scholarship, science, and education, which includes appraisal and selection, representation, and organization of these data for access and use over time. So here goes my next question. And my question to you is as follows. Have you heard of the term peer review? Have you heard of the term peer review? And do you think peer review is one form of curation in science? Have you heard of the term peer review? And do you think peer review is a form of curation in science? Have you heard of the term peer review? And do you think peer review is a form of curation in science? Quickly use the chat window. There are no negative markings for a wrong answer. And, in fact, I'm hoping, and please don't worry, in my subsequent slides, I will be answering this question. Okay. So have you heard the term peer review? If your answer is yes, just say yes. And do you think it is something similar to curation in science? Thank you, Ghazala. Ghazala says no. Manjari says yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. So with that answer, I can see a lot of you have said, no, you don't know what peer review is. So let me tell you what peer review indeed is. So peer review is a process, where you actually submit your paper to a journal. These are Nishta Desai's slides and they are my Twitterati friends. So I hope you can see I'm sharing due credit with them. Nevertheless, so here it goes through a process where experts on the paper, namely whether it's a biochemistry paper, it's a DNA barcoding paper, or it's a chemical synthesis paper, or it's, an analytical chemistry paper. So it will go through an expert desk and then they will validate your data and let you know if this content is good to be put out in the public domain. Okay, so many a times paper will get rejected, and many a times the reviewer suggestions can be incorporated and the paper gets published. Now do you think that peer review is a form of curation in science? I'm sure your answer is going to be yes. So indeed, one form of curation in science is peer review. Now, why do you think peer review or why do you think curation is important? Because it helps you evaluate the quality of scientific data. It could also ensure better access to the best scientific data. Okay. What about Wikipedia? Is Wikipedia curated? What do you think? Is Wikipedia curated, any of you? And if it is curated, by whom is it curated? Yes? Well, Wikipedia can be curated by anyone from anywhere. And do you see a problem with this? Do you see a problem with this? Yes. The problem is that this is not what I am saying, and don't believe everything that I am saying. But please see point number 6. Point number 6 clearly says that we do not expect you to trust us. Now, what happens when the source from where you're getting information is telling you that don't trust us? There could be a lot of errors in the articles. The article content could vary from time to time. So whenever you're using these public databases, please ensure that you go back to the back references that are given there to validate the content. Otherwise, you could be caught on the wrong foot for picking up information from these two public databases. But I'm sharing this with you in good faith, not because I have anything against them, but this is to tell you that where should be the right place if you had to go and look for content in the area of science and technology. So what are the different types of papers that typically that we see? They are, in journals. They could be letters, communication, article, review articles. Yes, what typically is done in the student domain area is a literature review and proposal. Okay, what are the differences between them? I'm just going to touch a very little on this because it could otherwise take a lot of time for me. Letters are brief reports. They, communicate important results. They're limited in length, figures and references. Well, their format is very, very abbreviated. They kind of, give additional supporting information, but they still must tell an entire story. Articles are full reports about new results, not limited in length, figures, numbers, or references. They could be a follow-up. They, have a traditional format. And reviews give an overview. They own a research or a field as a whole. There is no primary data included here, and there is thorough referencing that gets carried out. So I just thought it would be good for me to tell you, a literature review is shorter than a review paper in a journal. It is clear and well organized. It has a clear reference to primary literature. And of course, a proposal, I've included here saying it introduces and justifies scientific work. It includes, it's like a mini review. It has a plan of action, what we call as POA. I mean, it lays out a path of your proposed work. It clearly supports, with preliminary results and calculations to demonstrate feasibility. It's more like a USP or a sales document, which says that, look, this is how it's going to happen. And therefore, it will be good for you, for a funding agency or a grant agency to give you grants for it. Why you should be the person to do it, what expertise or experience you have that will help you. And if successful, where will it lead you to? Common elements that are, all these types are different, but the types of documents that we've discussed, what is the common elements that are there in them? They have a clear and precise writing format. They have figures that support, help and organize the text. They have a logical organization, and they have references to relevant literature. Okay, so here goes my next question. Have you heard of the term review article? Have you heard of the term review article? And do you think that a review article contains work done by one group of scientists or by many group of scientists? Have you heard of the term review article? Have you ever come across it? And do you think that a review article is work done by one group of scientists or many group of scientists? What do you think? Quickly, I saw your last answers were very quick. So I put in this poll question so it gets you thinking, and it also helps you remember the right answer. So what do you think is a review article? Is it work done by one group of scientists or by many group of scientists? So I can see a few yeses, but I would have, yes, I have, and I think they're done by one group. Thank you, Manjari. That really helps me. So I want to know whether it's by one group of scientists or by many group of scientists. Okay, thank you, Anshika. Thank you, Payal. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you so much for those answers. I can see the answers streaming in. So one last time, I'm repeating my question. Oh, thank you, Hansa. Hansa says by many group of scientists. Thank you. So that really helps me taking it forward. I just want to drive a point here that a research article is written by one group of scientists. And when I'm looking at a review article, I'm looking at something which is a club of research articles. Yes? So those of you who said written by one group of scientists, do you think you want to change your answer? So when I say a review article is a club of research articles, that means it is going to be put together by a set of author or authors, but it is going to have content from many groups of scientists. So if you're looking at contributions, it's going to be having contributions from many groups of scientists. So thank you, Ghazala. Thank you for those of you who gave the answer as one group. So I hope you're going to go back and check out what a review article looks like, and how many groups contribute to a review article. Okay. So taking this further, I just thought it's for us to engage like this. So taking this further, I hope you can see here, that how a review article is a club of research articles, and how in a review article you are, you have, it's an opinion piece by the person or persons who has written it, and how they view all the current literature in the field. Now, I hope you can see that thumbs up and thumbs down, that it could be something where, it's very holistic. It has been seen from all attributes, or it could be something that has a bias. So, that is how, sometimes we may get carried away by somebody's opinion, but we need to be very grounded to see how the review article has been put together. Now, what if you could read many research papers, make your own connections? What if you could link molecules and processes between papers? And what if you could keep all these connections for you to use when needed? Wouldn't that be great if there is a tool that helped you to do this? Well, you now have such a tool, and that tool is called as MANAV, the Human Atlas Initiative. Now, this is a prestigious Government of India project which is being co-funded by Persistent Systems and is being jointly executed by IISER Pune, Indian Institute of Science Education Research, National Center for Cell Science, NCCS, and all the backend support for this is being provided by Persistent Systems. Now, we are at the fag end of phase 1 of the project, which ends very soon. And we're hopefully looking forward to the project going into phase 2 so that many more students can be engaged in this kind of an endeavor. Okay. So to, take you further on how to read scientific literature and how you will be contributing to the project if you are able to before it ends is understanding what is the layout of a research article. Yes, you can see there's a title, there's an abstract, there's an introduction, materials and methods, results, discussion, conclusion, and references. Well, so what does the title page teach you? Yes, what does the title page essentially tell you? Well, it tells you about the title of the article, which is concise yet descriptive. It tells you the names of the authors. That's how, typically it's seen when you see the title page. It also has their highest academic degrees, the department, affiliations, their point of contact, the source of funding, and of course, the details of the corresponding author. It generally summarizes the main idea of the research paper. It briefly describes the study. So read the title carefully and ask yourself, what do I understand from this title? Or do I understand anything? Is there any take home for me in this paper? What about the abstract? Well, don't get carried away by this picture, but that was just to put it on a lighter note. Yes? What is it? I hope you can see the picture is saying, you said it all. But essentially, the abstract states the hypothesis, goal, or aim of the study. It provides a brief overview of methods and results. It summarizes the key results, and it provides a short conclusion. So make notes of what you understand. Ask yourself, why do I want to read this paper further if I want to read it further? Okay. Next comes the introduction. I hope you can see the funnel eye view that the mentor or the research guide is looking at, when he's looking at the introduction. What's the goal of an introduction? To introduce the readers to the subject under study, state the why you did it and what you did it, state questions or issues to be evaluated in greater detail, and carefully select the references to support those statements. So, well, after this introduction slide, I just want to tell you a few differences between the title and the abstract. So what is it that draws you to a Netflix series or to a book or to a research paper? Well, my dear friends, it's the title. Yes. And what is it that, draws you, to a movie? It's either a promo or a trailer or, a launch video. Well, so I want you to remember this clear distinction between the title and the abstract, where the abstract is the trailer of the research paper. Yes, or the ting ting ting, right? Now, many a times what happens is that the trailer of the movie looks very good, but the movie is not as good as the trailer postulated. Yes, that is why you will understand that many a times you get carried away by the abstract, but when you go and watch the movie, the paper doesn't deliver. So that is why it's important that you just don't get impressed by the abstract, but go ahead and read the paper so that you understand what's the content and what is it trying to say. Okay. Now, in the introduction, it provides you a background of the topic. It contains some details about previously published studies on the same topic. It highlights important missing information. It explains why the present study was conducted, and it may or may not provide an overall approach. It, however, sets a goal, aim, or hypothesis along with possible objectives for the research proposal done. Okay, so whenever you read the introduction of a particular paper, try to summarize the background in a few sentences for your own reference. Okay, so what happens, supposing you're discussing with your team, you're discussing with your research mentor, or you're talking to friends in your journal club, then instead of saying, oh, I read this paper, it had a new perspective completely, it had a new, protocol that they had used or a new method. Oh, this is the paper I was referring to. It is by this author, and I love to follow this author for, the kind of work that they're doing. And this is the new method they have introduced. And ma'am, this is the instrument we will need for this. This is the biomolecule that we may need to order, or the reagent. And this is how will make you an able researcher, whether you go into research and development or academia. But this is a systematic way of going through when you're doing organized reading. Okay, so what are the methods, materials and methods? I've used these slides which are more on a lighter note for you to understand that, whatever protocol that you're following, whatever content that you're using, whatever molecules that you're using, you put it in a very systematic fashion. You write them down in a formatted protocol so that when somebody else wants to carry out this research, they are able to carry out exactly the way you have listed it out. Okay. So what, it's a tell-all section. The materials and methods is a tell-all section. In the methods, you will find a list of the techniques used in the paper. Each technique will have the following details, namely the dosage, concentration of reagents, drugs, antibodies, a detailed description of the methodology on how the experiment was performed. Other details will include sample sizes, controls, statistical analysis, and more. So let me give you an example here. Supposing I say that, we are a set of researchers and we carried out this research at room temperature. Now, I'm sure you understand that what is room temperature for you in Delhi may not be the room temperature for somebody in Mumbai, will definitely not be the room temperature for somebody in Tamil Nadu or let's say, for example, in Guwahati. So what's important is that you meticulously list down what the temperature was using a thermometer and putting there exactly the temperature that you carried out your research, so that it helps another person to carry out this research in their lab. This is what we call as, replication of the same work. Yes. So what comes in results after you've done the materials and methods, where you've listed down what, dosages you used, what biomolecules you used, in the results is what you find the outcomes after carrying out an experiment. Let me share an example here. So the concentration of protein A was higher than that of protein B. Okay. Or the size of the test tumor was smaller than that of the control tumor. So this is the result. That means whatever you got after carrying out the experiment is what you put in on paper. Read each section along with the respective figure or table when you're reading a research paper or scientific content. Please look if the results section answers all the questions. I hope you remember that in the introduction, we clearly said that it highlights or puts together the aim, the hypothesis, or the goal of the proposed research that you're carrying out. Okay, so in the result, look for something called as coherence. What is coherence? You asked a question and you've now given an answer. So is this in sync? Have you answered the questions that you had raised in the beginning of the project or the research that you're carrying out? Well, briefly describe all the outcomes using tables and or figures to graphically present the results. This portion of the paper may be brief because your goal is to state the results, not to discuss your explain or explain your findings. This is something that I think we are not taught in college. I don't know if you're going to laugh at me, but typically when we carry out protein estimation, if I'm wrong, just correct me. When we carry out protein estimation, typically the result and conclusion looks like protein estimation using biorate method or protein estimation using Fall and Lowry method was carried out successfully. Now, I don't know really whether Fall and Lowry is happy with the successfully answer or whether your teacher is happy with that answer. But believe me, there is no growth that the child incurs in this process. So Fall and Lowry was a defined protocol. You carried it out, right? And it obviously had to work because there were experts in your team. There were experts in your college lab who have standardized the experiment. So the experiment had to work. So students, somewhere you need to understand that what is written in a result and what is written in a conclusion or discussion. In the discussion or conclusion, you write what is your interpretation, right? That did you find that there was a difference between the protein content of, from moong dal and banana? Did you think if you did two methods, let's say the biorate method and the Bradford method or the Bradford method and, Fall and Lowry method, did you find there was a difference in the protein profile you got? In the sensitivity of the method, in the ease of doing the method? Yes, that should be there in your discussion. But typically, I feel sorry for my teacher friends because they get so tired of reading the same conclusion again and again and again that the experiment was carried out successfully. So I hope after this, you're going to try and understand that results are just reporting of findings. And in your discussion and conclusion, in the discussion, you discuss your results. And in the conclusion is, do you draw anything from the findings? What is your take home? That you found Bradford was a very easy method. Fall and Lowry has multiple steps. But the sensitivity of Fall and Lowry is very high as compared to that of a Bradford's. But if you had 200 samples to analyze, then Bradford is a better method to use as compared to Fall and Lowry because you'd get exhausted carrying out the detailed protocol. So this is what your discussion and conclusion to aim at. I am definitely not aiming to teach you this just in a 1.5 hour session here, but I just thought it's good for you to know that what goes in results, what goes in discussion, and what is typically the content of a conclusion for either a research paper or an experimentation protocol. Okay, so the figures, they tell a story even in the absence of a text. So I wanted you to see this diagram where, this is a pie which has been half eaten. And this is the pie which has been left, right? I mean, it has not yet been eaten. So the figure should be able to tell you a story even in the absence of a text. And that's the quality of, a very good research paper. Many readers will look only at the abstract and figures, and the figures should be uncluttered, large enough font to be legible, and use color to help make your figures clearer. I hope you can see in my slide deck, I've tried to use these figures so that your take homes are more. And, instead of looking at it like a completely scholastic approach, it's going to make it more user friendly and more student centric so that there are some take homes from here. So what are you expecting to see in the results in a research paper? Well, be ready to see different kind of data. Why different kind of data? Obviously, because you're looking at, depending on the different types of study that has been carried out, the data may vary. Yes. Should I be able to understand all of the data? And the answer is no. Well, what do I do if I do not understand the data? The answer is read more papers. That's what scientists do. So when I'm reading one research paper, believe me, I end up reading at least 4 or 5 more research papers before I can actually understand this single research paper. So please don't worry. I'm giving you a 10% rule here, which I want you to remember. And what is this 10% rule? Well, in this 10% rule, I want you to understand that even if you could, when you're reading a research paper, when you're reading a content, when you're reading a book, when you're looking at a podcast, when you're even looking at a probably net series, or on different OTT platforms or a film, is there something that you take home? Can you understand 2 definitions, 3 words from that interaction? And that I would say is, bingo. So the purpose of you attending a talk, the purpose of you attending a particular study, the purpose of you attending a lecture is that have you been able to take home 2 definitions, 5 new words, a new style of writing, a new style to put your content across, and so on. So never penalize yourself if you can't understand all of the content of a lecture or, a research paper and so on. Let me make this a little simple for you by showing you how results are typically presented, that there may be a small effect that could be seen, there could be a huge effect, but that is how you need to present your findings. Your figures need to reflect that without any interpretation. So I've taken a few results here to take you through. This is how a schematic way of results is presented. I hope you can see here that there is some basal Golgi function, there is some reduced Golgi function, and some promotion of Golgi function. And what's given here in the red is the legend, which describes what the result is. Now, I hope you can see there are no tables, there are no big numbers here, but definitely this conveys the results that whatever experiment was carried out did kind of affect the Golgi bodies or the number of Golgi bodies that were there in the cell. This is an example of scientific illustration where, instead of, telling the researcher, take the left shank of the mouse, inject 10 to the power 8 cells, raise the tumor, salvage the tumor, sacrifice the animal. I hope you can see the researcher has very clearly given what we call as protocol illustration, so that as a researcher, you know exactly what you need to do. And this definitely helps a researcher to carry out these experiments. Okay, so while I was doing my PhD, my collaborator was NCCS. So we had to undergo training at National Center for Cell Science on making, how would you make artificial skin? How do you carry out? How do you seed the keratinocytes and melanocytes? But not everybody may be given this hands-on training. And that is how from research papers, a lot of researchers have to evolve their own methodology and carry out the animal work. Okay, now this is patient data. I hope you can see no pictures, no images, just simple dots. This is also to tell you that there are more than 200 ways of which you can express data. If you always thought that data can be expressed in the y equal to mx plus c or on a straight line, you are highly mistaken. Do try and take certain Coursera courses on machine learning, Gaussian theory. Even being science students, believe me, you will tremendously benefit from these courses. It will tell you how data has to be represented, how data comes from different sets of conditions. And here you can see each patient, dot, the IgG level being represented in a non-SIT and an SIT setup, a control versus test setup, which doesn't fit into y equal to mx plus c data set, but it's presented much differently. Of course, you have even more specialized data, which is proteomics data. You may have genomics data. You will have data on where you calculate the LD50 values, or you calculate the ED50 values, or you may have thermal denaturation of a particular compound, and so on. I couldn't have taken, subject content from all the different subjects. So please excuse me for my limited exemplars. So ask yourself, are the results sufficient to prove the aim, goal, or hypothesis of the study? That's very important. Yes, then move on to discussion. This is a discussion and interpretation of the obtained results. So you remember the example I said, the concentration of protein A was higher than that of protein B. So why was the concentration of protein A higher than that of protein B? The second one, the size of the tumor of the test was smaller than that of the control. So was there something in your biomolecule, was there something in your extract which caused the test tumor to not propagate so much? Which pathway did it affect? And well, if it was showing results, which biomolecule as a marker went down, which biomolecule as a marker level raised up? So this is what you're going to do in the discussion and interpretation of the obtained results. You could also end up comparing these results with previously published studies, looking at the strengths and limitations of the study, and looking at the future implications of the study. Well, sometimes authors tend to discuss conclusion at the end of the discussion section. Sometimes a paper may not have this section. However, do remember it's a summary of the obtained results. Okay? And at this moment, I want you to tell me, how will you decide to pick up the right paper? That this is the paper that I want to read. How will you go about doing this? How will you systematically go about picking up a research paper? What is going to be your step 1? What is going to be step 2? What is going to be step 3? What's going to be step 4? Yes. Anybody? Anybody? How are you going to look for a specific research paper? How will you look for a specific research paper? Don't worry, I'm going to help you out with the answer. But I just want you to, to think and tell me what spectrum, what crosses your mind when I say that this is the research paper I want to read. Which database are you going to go to? Any ideas? Anybody? Yes. How will you look for a specific research paper? First of all, will you go to Google and Wikipedia to look for a research paper? Will you go to Wikipedia or Google to look for a research paper? Yes. Anybody else? Kazala, you're saying yes. Anyone else? Manjari says yes. Well, what did I tell you when I showed you those slides? That those are public databases which are not curated. Yes. So I will answer your yes with what should be done. Well, you will not go to Google and Wikipedia, but you will go to well-curated sources. And those well-curated sources are those of PubMed. They are Scopus, Web of Science. Yes, you will go to well-curated sources and then look for your references. Okay, now you've gone to a well-curated source. What will you next do? Yes, thank you. What will you next do? You will now define what we call as keywords. You will now define what we call as keywords. You will type on these keywords and then you will get a lot of research papers. Yes, but you may end up getting research papers which are in thousands or which are in lakhs. What will you do now? You will now try and narrow down the search, right? So I could be looking for protein kinase C. I will try and narrow down the search by saying protein kinase C role in tumor suppression. So I'm narrowing down my search. When I narrow down my search, maybe from 2 lakh papers, I get 80,000 papers. From 80,000 papers, I may get 800 papers. But still, those papers are a huge number for me to read. So how will I narrow that down? I could probably now say protein kinase C, tumor suppressor, and the name of an author, right? I may know the full name of the author. I may just know the last name of the author. And once I put that, I may then end up getting just about 9 or 10 references, which is very doable. I can easily read those references. I can easily read those abstracts. I can read the titles and I can see, yes, this really fits my bill. This really fits the research interest area of interest which I'm looking at. And I can then read those research papers. So have you got this step right, all of you? Yes. Which are going to be your sources? Your go-to sources will be PubMed, Google Scholar, Scope of Science, Web of Science, and more. Yes, what are you then going to do? You're then going to define your keywords. Once you've put in your keywords, you're going to narrow down your search. And once you have narrowed down your search, you are going to get, with the help of a keyword, with the help of a connector, with the help of an author's name, you're going to get very specific papers. And once you have done that, you need to start reading the paper in an organized manner, which I have just discussed with you. But wait, before we finish, let me give you a quick way of how to read a scientific article in 30 minutes. Yes, and what is, of course, these are references that I just wanted you to before, I kind of move towards the last content, that whenever you're quoting, like, for example, even in my slide deck, few of my slides are from some other source, and I have shared due credit with them. That's Nishta Gandhi and Dr. Archana Bhatnagar from Punjab University. So you need to, give due credit, and that's how we are getting to the point of how to read a paper in 30 minutes. So I hope you are with me. That the title, you need to give it 1 minute. You need to give the abstract 10 minutes. You need to highlight as you read, and this is called as annotation, and I'm going to be discussing this in my next few slides. Quickly read the results in 10 minutes, quickly read the conclusion in 9 minutes, and then decide whether or not I should read the whole paper or not. Okay, now what is this annotation? This annotation is nothing but something that we've been doing from school. We take a pencil and we underline content. You know what you're doing when you're doing that? You are actually communicating with the text. And when you are communicating with the text, it helps you increase, the recall value of the text. Let me give you an example. So you underline something and in the margin you put an asterisk sign there, right? And what you've underlined is actually the name of Carey Mullis, who has discovered PCR, and you close the book. The next time you open the book, as soon as you see the asterisk star, it rings a bell in your mind that, oh, this is Carey Mullis who had discovered PCR. So always remember, whenever you annotate text, it helps you to increase the recall value of that text. So remember this mantra of reading a research paper in 30 minutes, the title a minute, abstract 10 minutes, highlighting as you read, and quickly reading the results and conclusion, and then deciding whether you really want to read the whole paper or not. So what is this annotation word that I've introduced? As I asked you, whenever I ask you a question, I'm going to be explaining it in my next few slides. Annotation is, reading actively, which means marking and taking notes in a text in some way. Have we done this? Yes, to a great extent. We've done annotation in a text. We've done, annotation in a diagram. How does annotation help us? It is when readers make notes and flag or highlight important details while they're reading. I hope you can see I've not taken a very high-ended slide, but this is from one of the posters that one of our students had made from a school session. It helps you focus on what you are reading. It makes you understand the details of a text, keep a track of thoughts and feelings, keep a track of important details. It helps you prepare for a discussion and also to prepare to write a text. Why should I annotate? Because I told you it helps readers comprehend and process the text in the moment, and it helps readers retain and remember information for later. Well, I've taken an example here, and what appropriate example than the use of PPE or personal protective equipment. I hope you can see there is the use of a box here, there is the use of underlining here, there are certain points here, and there are certain definitions here. This is to indicate the author's most important points, to indicate supporting points, to draw connections between ideas, to mark important definitions and terminology, to indicate steps in a process, and to help review and remember information when preparing for a class discussion and test. Okay. So I'm giving you here an example of annotation. I hope you can see this is an article. What's most important in this article is the use of fluorescence, UV visible time-resolved fluorescence, and far UV circular dichroism spectroscopy. Another article, I hope you can see this, I thought was very relevant to the present pandemic situation that we are in. If somebody had reviewed these papers way back, we would have been in a much better situation today. I hope you can see this is a 2007 paper where you can see the presence of a large reservoir of SARS-CoV-like viruses in horseshoe bats, together with the culture of eating exotic animals in southern China, could be a time bomb. And please remember, this is a 2007 paper. This, of course, is a 2019 reference, again, about bat coronaviruses in China, where, time and again, researchers have been trying to draw their attention. But I really wish we had a process by which we had reviewed this work, and that would have really been empowering at this moment. So here's to MANAV, where we make teams in different colleges. So I would request you to kindly go to our website, which is manav.gov.in. Students, teachers, while we have some time before the platform either goes for a phase 2, in terms of funding from the funding agencies, join us, make a team in your college, contribute by curating and capturing scientific data from papers on the MANAV platform, get recognition through rewards program, get a chance to interact with scientists, create an impact through your curation, contribution, and collaboration, learning and growing. So what will you be doing? You will be annotating papers as a contributor. This will go through a process of review and expert review. And finally, all this will be added to a huge database of content, which will have, a lot of definitions. It will have a lot of, new techniques. And if you're ready, let's do this with an example. So I'm giving you a sentence here, and I want you to tell me what will you annotate in case you found this sentence in a research paper. So cetrimide is a drug that is used for seborrheic dermatitis. Cetrimide is a drug used for seborrheic dermatitis. What will you underline in this? What will you annotate in this, a sentence? Cetrimide is a drug used for the treatment of seborrheic dermatitis. What are you going to annotate in this? Any takers after all this that I have spoken to you? Anything? I'm not looking at the correct answer. I just want to see what your thought process is. Yes, that in this sentence, what is it that you're going to annotate? Cetrimide is a drug used for the treatment of seborrheic dermatitis. Cetrimide is a drug used for the treatment of seborrheic dermatitis. Anybody? Thank you, Payal. Name of the drug and its treatment. Fantastic. So this is how you're going to go ahead. You're going to be annotating text in a research paper. This will go through a process of review and expert review. And then this will be added to a vast entity list that will be available to researchers, academicians, students, so that instead of reading many research papers, you will be looking at this well-curated content on this public database, which is going to be available freely to all the stakeholders. So, just a few more slides before we go ahead with our discussion. What typically is a part of a research paper, yes, is essentially what is new about your work that was not known before. What method did you use to arrive at your results, interpretation, conclusions that you draw, and what further do you think is necessary to solve the problem, or did you solve all of it or part of it? Okay, questions that you typically ask yourself when you're reading or writing a research paper is, what is the introduction? We call this the IMRAD method. What is the introduction? What was done in the methods? What did they find out? And what does that mean is done in the discussion? So I just mentioned to you that this is called as the IMRAD structure, where you look at earlier research findings, generation of hypothesis, details about patient's population, procedure and instrument details, explanation of research outcomes or the statistical significance, and in the discussion, this is more like a summary of what I have already spoken, confirmation of hypothesis, comparison to other people's research outcomes, and then putting forth what were your research outcomes. As I already mentioned, this talk was not about taking things that I have told you as the final answer, but I want you to use this and take these discussions further in informal sessions. The questions that I've asked were not for an exam. I did mention this, that I hope you gave the answers you felt were true and not what I expected from you. Also, I'm okay with what you put through. So thank you very much for those answers, because this was definitely not an English exam that was expected for you. Here is a summary of the pictures that I put together for the title and the abstract. I hope you can see the fun or the pun intended there, where I've used keywords which will help you find your research paper, and how you define your keywords is something that will take you to the appropriate research paper. How in the methods and materials and methods you need to be very specific, that everything that you need to be doing is put there so that somebody else can mimic or carry out the same procedure and get the same results. The results, whether it's a huge impact, whether it's a less effect, how are you going to validate, and how it definitely needs to go through an expert desk of, whether it's really making a difference or not. And of course, the figures and tables, which need to be completely self-explanatory. So when you read papers in Nature, when you read papers in Science, in PLOS ONE, you will find that sometimes the text is not as easily assimilable. So I discussed with you the 10% rule, where I wanted you to take, that if you can get 10% of the paper, that's a bingo, and be happy with it. If you can get more, that's good, but please don't penalize yourself, because we are all very different individuals. So more often than not, you will find that the results are very self-conveying. It's a tell-all tale. That means whatever part is eaten can be seen, and whatever remains, so the figure has to give away exactly the outcomes or findings. Some helpful skills to have, which I thought I must mention since I'm addressing you as an audience, is typically I've classified them again as language skills, other communication skills, statistical techniques, language skills, ability to speak and write clearly, understand written papers, talk to colleagues with respect and self-respect. This is something that's very important, which we call as people management or man management. Other communication, email, etiquette for writing requests, privacy and courteousness in online forums or mailing lists. Well, let me give you an example here. So supposing you want to learn more about CAMs and JAMs. So I can share that Dr. Nagaraj Balsubramanian's lab in IISER Pune works on CAMs and JAMs, right? These are cell adhesion molecules and junction adhesion molecules. So go to the IISER Pune website, look at the kind of work he's doing, write to him that this is the kind of work that you like, and you'd like to take it further for a master's, for an integrated master's PhD, or for a postdoctoral fellowship. This is how you connect with scientists. Don't feel shy. Write to him. Say, I've read your work. This part of your work is something that I really liked. I really enjoyed, reading your work. I really liked your talk. I really read your research paper. So that is how you engage with science. And this is going to be the way going forward. Statistical techniques. What is a hypothesis? What's hypothesis testing? What's confidence interval? What's a curve fitting? What's regression? And more. Okay. Some helpful technical skills to have: how to use computers, making basic documents for your CV, for your application letters, and more. Computer programming, Python is a good first choice, but others may also be helpful. How to find resources online, namely lectures, review articles, journal published articles, LaTeX for writing manuscripts, making plots and graphs, making presentations. And believe me, I'm not going to tell you how to do it, because you could just Google how to do this and whatever you're looking for, and you'll find the correct answer. So believe me, you won't have to depend on me or your teacher to do it. You're going to be a self-driven person for this. Well, if your language skills need improving, the medium of professional science language is English. So please acknowledge that English is a foreign language and we will need effort and attention to learn it. Please look up videos in English learning on YouTube. There are thousands of them. There are lots of resources there. Read, read, read. This is my mantra. So even before I had this session and I had my slide deck, being put together, I was just reading more and more and more, and I didn't at any time assume that I had known enough of the content that I wanted to present to you. Watch good English language TV shows and movies with English subtitles that helps you build your vocabulary, the pronunciation with the written word. Make a study group and explain physics, explain maths, explain biology, and join a speaking club like Toastmakers. This is something that I've drawn from Nishta's slide. So each college, each university has their own clubs. So definitely make them more engaging and empowering. Learning new skills, keep a growth mindset. I have constantly been saying that, don't penalize yourself, don't penalize yourself. If there's any point you reach, this is more about holistic sharing of experience as a teacher, as a parent, as a mentor, that just tell yourself, my time has not come yet. That not yet. Please keep telling yourself not yet. That am I expected to know this? Not yet. I'm still learning it. So it's okay to have a growth mindset. That's more important than being intelligent or being, super smart or being a critical thinker. And if something that you don't know, just honestly admit it, go back, read, and grow yourself as an individual. Well, ingredients for learning, as you saw, I asked for feedback even just before I began my slide deck, is take it seriously, but not personally. So if somebody says your talking is very stylish, your use of vocabulary is very nice, well, pat yourself on the back, because coming from a Hindi-speaking family, coming from a very conservative Haryana family, nobody speaks English in my house. But my parents, just told me to stand in front of a mirror and say that, you're Barkhadat reporting from Kargil. And that's what really took me, built my confidence. It built my knack for reading more, for building my vocabulary. Ask for help whenever you're stuck. I will definitely share my email address. Your teacher has my email address. And just remember that whenever you're reading or listening for the first time, please write down, take notes, not to learn by heart, but to figure out the argument yourself. Expect to make mistakes and expect it to be difficult. It was not easy for anybody. But what I think is what I want you to remember, point number one, that know what you are required to know in your field. Ask your seniors, ask your batchmates, ask your advisor, your teacher, your mentor, your HOD, your teacher in charge, your counselor, and make a kind of syllabus for yourself that, this semester I must know this much, which could be within your syllabus of, what is your framework of your core credit course, and something more for your own self, So sorry if this really digresses from the talk, but I thought it should be. Formula for success: be very proactive, envision your goals, ask for help when you need it. Don't wait for somebody to tell you. Use the internet to search for answer to your questions. Contact people for projects, internships, and more. What differentiates a successful from an unsuccessful person is nothing but resilience, okay? Where you have a good support network. This is obviously your friends and family. Good self-care, where you need to eat, sleep, exercise, and relax. Proactiveness, where you're not constantly pitching yourself and waiting to be rescued, but you're constantly on the go. And having a growth mindset, where you tell yourself that almost everything can be learned, okay? So do what you can with what you have and where you are, and find the joy in the journey. There's no shortcut to, there's no shortcut road to success. And I hope you will take home that. I leave you, these are my references. These are very few of my references because I'm sure you would have seen. This is what I want to leave you with, that if you cannot explain something in a very simple manner, then it's a little unlikely that you'll be able to, teach it or further take one step at a time and, be kind to yourself. So thank you very much for being such a patient audience. And I'm leaving the forum open for any questions or doubts that you would have, where you want to let me know, or you want to ask me something, or there's something that you want me to clarify. I would be happy to take questions from you. Are there any questions? Are there any doubts that you would like me to clarify on, or go back to any particular slide, or clarify any specific mention that I have used in my slide?
Students, you can come up with the questions whichever come to your mind. Ma'am is waiting.
Yeah, and there is one more thing. Sometimes you get very overwhelmed by the speaker. You are so mesmerized by what the speaker has said. So it's perfectly okay if you have any questions after a week or after a few days, and you suddenly say that oh, I wanted to ask this. You can always route it through your teacher so she knows. And that adds value addition. Okay, before we close, I want to ask you a question, if you're open for it and if we have the time for it, ma'am, with your kind permission. How many research papers have you read in the past 22 months that we've been in this situation? And after my talk, can you tell me if you feel enthused enough that you're going to start reading a research paper? Okay, Ghazala has a question. Ghazala, I'm going through your question, but please do pay heed to these two questions that I have asked you. How many research papers have you read in the last 22 months? And after my talk, do you feel enthused that you're likely to consider reading a research paper, in the next few days, or you're not going to, think about it? So what is it that comes to your mind? Can you give me your social media platform that will help me to follow? Well, Ghazala, I'm very active on Twitter, and I have a thumb rule on Twitter. I share a lot of content. I share a lot of project fellowships and a lot of meaningful content. So I'm on Twitter. I'm also on Facebook, and I'm also on LinkedIn. So you could decide, which one where you want to follow me as Anu Harshal. So you'll find a picture of me there, which will not be difficult to identify. So I hope you can, that kind of helps you to follow me. On LinkedIn, I put very specific scholastic content. On Facebook, I put a lot of general content. And on Twitter, of course, it's again very scholastic and, a huge content in terms of value addition, in terms of learning, and so on. So Ghazala, I hope I've answered your question there. Yes, I'm waiting for my answers. How many research papers have you read? Ghazala, thank you. That I want to read. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that answer. I really appreciate. Yeah, and please don't worry. I can see many of you maybe a little shy in answering questions, but it's perfectly okay. If it crosses your mind, you want to write an email, route it through your teacher, and I'll definitely respond back to you. Yeah. Any other questions? But this session has inspired me to start reading. Thank you, Deepansha. Thank you, Jagriti. Thank you, Payal. Arushi, I think your audio is on. If you could just be kind enough to put it off. Yes. Thank you, Antika. That's very kind of you. Okay. Any other question? Any other doubt that crosses your mind?
Ma'am, we are streaming this talk on YouTube also.
Okay.
So some students from YouTube chat have also questions, which Dipanshi has just shared on the chat box.
Okay, I'm just looking at them, ma'am. Which website should we read to read research papers? Well, Dipanshi, thank you, because I cannot move back and forth on different platforms. So very kind of you for sharing those questions. So my advice would be to use PubMed and Google Scholar, Scopus, and Web of Science. You can also go to Science Direct and Elsevier. They have very good references. Please remember, go to sites which are well curated. Please go to sites which are well curated. That means the data or the content that is there on these sites is validated, okay? So that you are not getting carried away by the content and then you suddenly find that this content can't be trusted. So just ensure that you're going to well curated sites. So I hope I have answered that question, that which website we should go for reading research papers. Yes, Dipanshi, I hope there are more questions coming for me, so I'm waiting to hear from you. Yeah. And PubMed and Google Scholar will have references or just about in all the subjects. Okay, so Google Scholar will give you reference in just about all subjects, and Google Scholar is more user friendly in terms for students. Okay, the references, the kind of papers that you have, Google Scholar is more user friendly, is more kinder to students. And PubMed, many a times you will get stuck at a point where you can see the abstract or just the title alone, and so you may not be able to get the entire paper. But if you're ever stuck in a place like this, please do feel free to write back to different scientists, or you can just write back to the author saying that I'm looking for this paper, and they'll be happy to oblige you by sharing the original research paper with you. Yeah. Any other question? In statistics, what could be the domains of research? Well, thank you, Anshika. Statistics is not my forte, but still I can share a few, interactions that I've had with the Maths and Statistics department, where we worked on collaborative projects. So in statistics, the domains of research would be, first, primarily, it would be driven by what your department is ready to take on in terms of, whether you're looking at a particular programming, whether you're looking at a particular, way of solving a protocol. Like, for example, we recently did a project where we looked at, whether the Parsi population would actually go down by 2050. Right, so this is something that 2-3 students, they formed a syndicate, they formed a group, and they looked at what was the existing data, and whether they would be able to make a prediction based on the given content, given models that were available. And they made a very interesting observation. So that is how you could draw from different domains. You could look for some interdisciplinary outcomes, Anshika, where you could work collaboratively with the chemistry department, or with the biology, botany, zoology, life science, microbiology department, where they're looking at a particular study, and you could see how much percentage of confidence can be built into that study, what kind of tests to be used for that study, and that will help you develop a research perspective and a specific domain for yourself. So Anshika, I hope I have been able to answer your question, because that's not really my domain, but I'm just sharing with the kind of expertise which I have in my interactions with these students. Research papers have a very difficult English to use. How do we break down difficult English structure to be able to understand it? Well, I can't tell you, again, whoever this reader is coming from Dipanshi, that the English is difficult. Yes, I completely agree. What you can do is read the research paper, make your notes. What did you find difficult? Was there a verbatim statement that you found difficult? Was there a particular term that you found that you couldn't understand? Go back and, hello, I hope you can hear me. Hello, I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. My audio just dropped for a minute. Yeah. Sorry about that. Okay, so go back and check out what that word means. Go back and find out what is the meaning of that sentence, and that will kind of help you to understand. But this, I completely agree, this is not just coming from you, but even as researchers, when we read papers from philosophy and nature, the language is very difficult to understand. Please don't worry. If you think reading the introduction is going to take you away from the paper, go straight for the results and discussion. And believe me, the graphical representations, the pictures, depictions will make it easier for you. Yes, but the English level is definitely going to be difficult. But the only way you can combat that is write down the words that are difficult, write down the statements that think are a little difficult for you to understand, and find out the meaning. Speak to your mentor, have a small tea club with your friends. Just spend about 10 minutes or 15 minutes discussing a particular paper, and you will find from these different perspectives, there'll be somebody who will be able to give you the correct answer, and you'll be able to draw out from that experience. You could also write to the person who's written the paper as to what did you intend to say by this sentence. Believe me, they will be very happy to clarify it for students. So I hope I have been able to answer that question.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the compelling learning experience that you have provided, and also for answering all our doubts regarding the topic so patiently. I'm certain that you have already inspired a bunch of curious minds present here with us today. Your contribution to the event was immensely valuable. Thank you for giving your vital time from your busy schedule to grace this event. Moving ahead, I would like to call upon Mahak Mahajan, the President of the Department of Statistics, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Mandira. Firstly, I would like to thank Dr. Anupma for taking time from a busy schedule and being with us and for conducting such an informative talk. I would also like to extend my gratitude to our principal, Professor Payal Mago, for always supporting us. A special thanks to our TICs, Dr. Punita Saxena, Dr. Alka Vora, Dr. Jasjeet Kaur, and Dr. Dhirendra Singh for guiding us. I would also like to thank all the participants for their presence and contribution. Last but not the least, I thank the organizing team and volunteers for making this event a success. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Anupma, from all the faculty members. Students are really indebted to you for introducing the terms like peer review, curator, etc. I think they will be taking home something. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for your kind. Yeah. Thank you so much for all the hosts and Dipanshi for coordinating on YouTube and the session, and to all the event members who put together the introduction and the thank you notes. Thank you so much, and really looking forward to interact with you here. And please take care and be safe, everybody.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, my dear. So with your kind permission, can I leave the meeting?
Yes, Dr. Anupma, we are over with the session. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah.